In this video, I'm going to share 3 big strategies that will help you infer the meaning of challenging words. In other words, to take good guesses at what they might mean. Now, we don't expect you to know every word that you read this year, and we don't want you to look up every one of them in the dictionary as you're trying to get through a chapter. Strong readers use strategies to take a good guess at what those words might mean, and then they keep going. The 3 strategies you'll learn in this video are to look for context clues, consider word parts, and only then use a dictionary if you need. Our first big strategy is to use context clues. The word context means the other words before and after the word you are trying to figure out. We look for clues in that word's sense, and we look for clues in the sentence before it and after it too. Context matters. It makes a big difference in our ability to guess what a word might mean. Sometimes when we're trying to understand a difficult text, any given sentence can start to feel blurry and confusing. It's kind of like these people looking at just one part of an elephant. When they're zoomed in on that detail, it's hard to tell what it is. But if they could take a few steps backward and see the whole picture, that weird line and blur would come into focus as the elephant's ear and leg. The same is true for challenging words in a text. If we start to look for clues before and after that word, its meaning slides into focus. Let's look at this example from page 10 of A Long Walk to Water. Maybe you already know what the word rebels means. If so, pretend you don't. We are going to look for context clues in order to figure it out. When we look before the word, we see that rebels are a group of soldiers. When we look right after, we see that it is those who are fighting against the government. When we put those clues together, we can guess that a rebel is a soldier fighting against the government, and we'd be right. The second big strategy we can use to infer the meaning of challenging words is to consider word parts. The fact is that modern words are often put together like Legos from smaller pieces. These smaller pieces or word parts include affixes. That's parts that always come at the beginning or end of words. And they also include roots. These might appear anywhere in a word. The thing is that when we see these word parts, they nearly always carry the same meaning. Let me show you what I mean. Let's take the word revision. You may know this word already from school. Maybe your teacher makes you do this as part of writing assignments. But whether you know this word or don't know the word, let's look at its parts. The first word part in revision is re, R-E. If you think about it, you've seen lots of other words that start with a re. Words like replay, rethink, rewind, redo, restart, rebuild. And in every one of these words, the word part re carries the same idea of back or again. When the football commentators show us the instant replay, they play back the footage. When you rethink something, you think about it again before you do it so that you don't make a bad mistake. When you restart something, you start back at the beginning. When you redo something, you do it again. When you rebuild something that's fallen apart, you build it again. So we can be pretty confident that part of the definition of revision is going to be this idea of back or again. Now consider the root VIS or viz. You've seen this word part too. When a movie or video game reviewer talks about its visual effects, the way the movie or game looks. The same word part is in vision. You know that when a doctor checks your vision, they are checking how well you can see. And you've probably heard the word visible, something you can see. Or maybe you've heard the word invisible, something you can't see. And then there is the word supervise, when someone looks over the job you're doing. In all of these cases, VIS or viz carries the idea of look or see. And revision is going to carry that idea too. So we can start to make a pretty good guess at what the word revision means when we think about its word parts. We know that it's going to be about looking or seeing and back or again. And it's true, revision means looking back over something and making some changes. These first two strategies work really well together. Here's an example. Let's look at this passage from page 12 of A Long Walk to Water. What might the word restlessly mean? So first, we're going to look for some context clues. We see that it's evening and they're spending the night. But salva tossed, that doesn't sound very peaceful. And then the narrator mentions itchy hay. Both of these clues make it feel like he's really uncomfortable. Then we see at the end of the passage that it took him a long time to fall asleep. So whatever restlessly means, it seems bad or uncomfortable. Now let's add the strategy of considering word parts. It turns out less is an affix that means without, and the word restlessly contains a root that we all know, rest. Put those things together, we have without rest. And that matches all of our context clues. Salva is trying to sleep, but he's tossing, he's itchy, and it takes him a long time to fall asleep. So we can make a good guess that restlessly means without getting any rest. So after we've tried these first two strategies, if we're not sure, it can be useful to look up a word in a dictionary or online. But you've probably had the same experience I have, where you look up a word and you get 2 or 3 or even 5 definitions. The fact is, the same word can mean a lot of different things. So in this last strategy, we use context clues to check to see whether a dictionary definition makes the most sense. For example, on page 12 of A Long Walk to Water, we find the word objected. Or is it objected? What is this word? We can start with some context clues. It says that after that, no one objected. But what was that? Oh, earlier we see that it's one man protested he didn't want to go with the rebels, and he got cracked in the face for speaking up. So after that, no one objected. In the next sentence, it says what they did instead. They shouldered the heavy equipment and left the camp. So they did what the soldiers told them to. The man who did object didn't want to do what they said. When we look up the word in the dictionary, we find 2 different definitions. It can mean a thing that you could see and touch, or it can mean to argue against. But only one of those definitions fits the context clues. Objected has to mean that he argued against. So, to review, in middle school we challenge you with texts that have lots of challenging words, but you can infer what these words mean if you use these 3 strategies. Look for context clues, consider word parts, and then use a dictionary to check which definition fits the word in this context. Take your time, use your strategies. You've got this.